day. Most importantly, really, I guess, with Nautilus, which is a school improvement platform that we created. So I just really mentioned from the onset, I guess, that everything that we'll show you today comes from doing the job and being in schools and wrestling with all of those big challenges. And what we did then was to try and create solutions and opportunities for people to be able to use iPads and to capture and evaluate using a little bit of sort of technology. So everything you see today is what we've created, and it, like I say, it comes straight from being in the head teacher's chair. So I'm really looking forward to this session, David. And I like this one in particular because it is just a good run through, not just the platform, but also some some really good ideas as to how you can do things. So you can take a lot away from it regardless, because we'll be covering, what works, what doesn't work, the kind of language that we can use, how we can create healthy, sustainable and distributed leadership in school for our subject leads, department leads, Senkos, Oncos, those kind of things. So there's an awful lot of really big, important content that we're going to discuss today. So very much looking forward to it. And I know, looking at the numbers and looking at everybody in preparation for today, we've got a good selection of people from all around the world, haven't we? So I always like it when we get that kind of an audience.
Yeah, just a bit of housekeeping probably, David. I think that we've got about 50 or so registered for this session this morning, many of whom are going to be teaching or busy in school. Some will be in the middle of inset days, and also some may well already be on holidays. I've seen some Facebook posts from very happy teachers and leaders already jetting off last night for their half term. So we do these for people that are joining us live, and for those of you who are with us live, we have a chat feature in the right hand side. Please just nip in there and tell us who you are and where you are, what role you've got, etc. We'll respond. But also, we have people who are joining us for the video. So if you're watching this and you've been sent this as a video, then you won't see the chat feature on the right. But any questions or comments that come in, that we will discuss and we'll make reference to them, so you kind of know what's going on on the right hand side as well. But yeah, I think that the kids call these hacks, don't they, David? I think teacher leadership school hacks. I think we're going to be covering a number of them. And one of the unique opportunities that we have, David, in our current positions is that we get to speak to so many school leaders in lots of different settings, in different areas, in different parts of the world, different age groups, experienced and new. And what we're able to do is come away from those and actually create content and support teachers, head teachers and school leaders with the problems and the current issues that may well be that they're tackling. And having this opportunity on a Friday, because we do these every week, and we'll show you where you can get more information on working with SEND leads or subject leaders that we do as well. We get to share these with people, and we love doing these on a Friday, and they're always well received. And it's a good opportunity just to share some of that stuff, because I don't know about you, David, but when I was a head teacher or a school leader at various different levels, never got to speak to other leaders enough. We never got to be in their classrooms or in their schools enough, did we?
No, absolutely. And I don't think, that time is so sacred, just to get some headspace to be able to kind of reflect on how you do things. And I think as head teachers and leaders, were quite selfless. We ensure that everybody else is okay and well supported, because that's our job. We've got a duty of care. But when it comes down to actually sort of separating and getting some perspective on how we do things in school, I don't think really we do that quite often very effectively. We might sort of say we need some time really to get some work done, so there's a report to write for the governors or something like that. But to actually sit back and sort of reflect on kind of some of the things that we do in school, maybe I don't, I certainly didn't spend much time doing that. And when it came around to the next round of observations or whatever, I kind of rolled my eyes, and I was getting to the stage where there has to be a better way to do it. And so a lot of the things you'll see today come from conversation where, the leaders have said, it'd be great if you could do this. And then we've taken that away and developed that. So let's take a little look and get moving. So here you can see I'm logging in on my device, so iPads or tablets, because it's cloud-based. Once we've logged in, we can take a little look at the settings to begin with. A couple of things to mention, really. We've put lots of controls in so that you can make changes and adapt things to how you want to do them. You can switch things off, so you've got lots of choices and so on. But you'll see here we're using a rubric where we're using the terms prioritize, develop, effective, and highly effective. If you want to change them, if you want to, remove them and not use them, that's entirely up to you. And we've also got an international framework we'll take a look at today, which has 6 that fits with, the UAE and so on. But on this primary version that we're looking at here, it has 4. We've also got a high school platform too. But essentially the most important thing really about this process is that we are making a very conscious shift and being explicit about what we're trying to achieve. And in that sense, prioritize and develop. It's developmental. There will be opportunities. That's an invitation to give feedback, to be able to share ideas and to be able to collaborate. And effective and highly effective, obviously, we can aspire and work towards that. So it's good to be able to kind of create a framework which is about providing, it's developmental rather than judging teachers. And I think that's there's been an opportunity there where we've sought to do that. You'll see how that's applied as we go through the framework. But one thing that does do, most importantly, is it gives us data. If we said, well, we're not going to use that, we don't want to use it, we want a blank piece of paper, there's other problems with that. Ultimately, we're not going to get data. We're not going to be able to see strengths and areas for development, not just as a whole school, but as a science lead or maths. So this affects everyone. So if we use a rubric, we can create content and it can provide guidance. There's different types of rubrics that serve different purposes, but ours is very clear. It guides, and we'll show you kind of more in a moment when we do that. So you'll see I've prepared a learning snapshot. I'm going to go see 4 teachers. It's English Key Stage 2, and those are my 4 lesson visits that are lined up in the to-do column. If I was going to do it with you, David, you would have yours lined up too. And then once we click, this is a sort of standard kind of process, I guess. This is something that typically schools do. And I like that because we're building on that practice. But what we are doing is with this visit, as you mentioned earlier, within 10 minutes in the classroom, we're going to try and capture as much as possible. And we always say with a snapshot, about 10 minutes is about right, because there's only 4 lines of inquiry that we're going to focus on. If we had 10 things and descriptors would be in the classroom a lot longer to validate, and that's what we found, and that's problematic in other ways. So we want to reduce the stakes, keep it light touch and promote this dialogue, but at the same time we're going to get data, we're going to get instant feedback, and I'll show you how we'll do that. We're going to take photos and we're going to get that dashboard analysis. So you can see now really how we've redesigned this and distilled it down from what schools typically do, because more often than not we end up with descriptors which take longer to validate. Quite often it's about compliance, which is fine if your school is failing, and I don't mean that in a critical way, because I worked in schools in special measures, but when your school is in under scrutiny, quite often you need to promote consistency, and so you need to make it very explicit about the expectations. At this point, when you're looking at this on the screen, we're assuming that this school, which would be my school, I guess, when I left, we were fairly stable. So there is a balance of challenge and support to strike. So let's get moving. We've got 4 lines of inquiry. We've basically got behaviour, teaching, learning, and outcomes. Applicable to any lesson. It's not subject specific. We can then evaluate what we see, and here we're looking at impact. So rather than having a checklist of things, we can see the pupils are engaged. We're now looking to see what does the teacher do to engage the pupils. So interesting when you were talking, David, about that feedback and that recognition, because this is throwing it back to me as the visitor in the classroom to establish and to identify what the teacher's doing here to ensure that the teacher that the children are engaged. So it could be different in any classroom, but the most importantly, we're focusing on the outcome and the impact. And again, that's different to judging teachers and compliancy and the things that we've done before. If it's anything less, then an opportunity to feedback is fine. We mentioned earlier, if you're teaching a big, wide curriculum with 9 areas, or if you've moved from year 5 to year 3, then there's going to be some that you teach better than others. So we need to be clear that it's fair and it's an opportunity, but it's not about failure. So here it's about development, and we would expect to have areas for development across those subjects. Sometimes there might be priorities. We can pick up on those occasionally, and then we can follow those up as priority conversations. But more often than not, we are going to be talking about good teaching, which is effective. And again, that's your invitation to provide some feedback. So if we're going to do that here, we can use a stylus and we can jot if that's the preference, but we can also use the Voicetype. So I'm going to show, hopefully it'll do the recording for me. But we can use the Voicetype here as well, which I think is really helpful in being able to, let's see if it'll record me. Oh, there we go. I really like the way you work with the children and the relationships that you have, full stop. Why not have an activity on the board when the children arrive after playtime to settle them down, full stop. I can just tidy that up, but you get the idea. David, we always sort of mention really about the idea that I suppose this is the difference between using a pen and paper or doing it, having that reporting to do. Here we can get straight onto that feedback if we use the Voicetype, which is obviously the benefit of using a device. And again, in the interest of efficiency, what are your thoughts really around kind of using this bit of tech? Is it commonplace?
Well, it should be. I don't think it necessarily is. I mean, we've moved on from the days of dragon dictation, haven't we, with the headphone or with the microphone, and you had to get the microphone nearly touching your lips, and then if you had an accent like we possibly do, then it was pretty much impossible. We've come on from that now, and it is commonplace, and children are using that type of technology all the time with Siri, with Gemini, with AI. Why not use it? We might feel a bit self-conscious, but I think it's commonplace in terms of that technology. It should be, and it's proven to be over 10 times quicker in the long run. So why not do it? Save a bit of time and see how accurate it is.
Yep. So on this occasion, you can see there, I'm saying it's effective. I really like this, and I'm capturing that and then making a suggestion, which is a next step, not an AFI or a target. It's about, providing it's developmental. So we're saying that we could actually be highly effective or make a suggestion. So some good opportunities to do that. But yes, the Voicetype means that we can get straight onto the feedback, and I'll show you how after we've done this visit. So we're looking, first of all, in the classroom at the engagement. Then we start to look at the subject knowledge. So here we're looking at the curriculum impact. And here we can look at planning, the modeling, the questioning, the use of resources. There's lots of things. But again, rather than having a checklist, which is about consistency or turnaround, here what we're going to do is just evaluate the impact of that. So again, we're looking to see what the teacher does and what the effect is on those pupils. So it's interesting to look at it from a subject knowledge point of view, and I really like the fact that we're here. If we're going to look at teaching, in a moment we'll look at learning. But we can assess those things, and again, it's not subject specific, so we can apply this terminology across the curriculum. And what we're doing is we're creating a framework for all of our subject leaders to use. So again, as a head teacher, we are creating systems which are efficient and effective, and we are creating those for our staff to do. So when I go into schools for the local authority, the priority quite often is, right, okay, show me how particularly with this accountability that we've got with subject leadership or SEND. I can say, right, tell me a little bit about how you quality assure. The biggest challenge is always, it's really difficult to get the time for everybody to go and see each other. So today we'll look at the book studies, we'll look at the gallery and how we can use those as well. But if this is a 10-minute visit and you've got an hour of leadership and management time, then ultimately you can get an awful lot from that, and we can get straight into the feedback and the reporting. So there's some significant benefits from that, and that's a challenge which we sort of see all of the time. I hear all of the time. So here we're looking at the learning. So the pupil contributions here, and you'll see acquisition and application. It's only ever going to be either or both. And the most important thing here, we could be looking at the books. We could be talking to the pupils. first page to last, progress on the day. And also the other thing that we can do is pause it. So we could leave the room in 10 minutes, come back at the end of the lesson and see the outcome. So we don't need to spend an hour in the lesson to see what the progress looks like. And again, that's a common mistake. That raises the stakes, doesn't it? So it doesn't need to be excessive, the amount of time in the class. Here we can use the device, save it, and then come back and then just complete that. And if we want to just dip into certain books, then there's some really good sort of ways to be able to kind of focus that in the interests of accuracy. So acquisition and application, it's only ever either or both. I always think that you could almost distill this entire process down to those two words. Then we use the term value. I will say, and I'm going to throw this in there now, is that we've got an editing suite on Nautilus, so you can create your own content, because I know people will be looking at this and starting to think, I'd like to change that, adapt that. Oh, we've got one of those. You can add it to it, so you create your own toolkit for your leaders on the system, and then everybody can use those. So you can edit, change these, remove the terminology, add questions to it, or create your own from scratch. And they will all sort of function the same way. And I'll show you a little bit as we move towards the end where that sits. So here you can see the value. So what the outcomes look, and then this is about sort of curriculum impact. We tried progress, attainment, achievement, ARA, all these terms, they come with numerical thresholds, national averages, inspectorate definitions, percentages, 65 to 75% is good. So what, and then it's very good, and those kind of, so it's quite sort of contentious. So we went with value, which is more subjective, but intentionally so. We can reference progress in here, but we're not shackled to it. So it doesn't become a pass or fail process. So when we were designing really and talking and looking at that matrix, the one thing that we couldn't really take from this so far is that it's light touch. So just because we're looking at 4 areas, we can be in and out of the classroom fairly swiftly. It's not excessive. We're not having to validate and spend the entire lesson in there to be able to see things. So it keeps it concise. All of these 4 lines of inquiry are the key ones, so everything else fits within that, so we can still weave in those school improvement priorities and things that we want to develop. It also means that the feedback is not excessive, because that's part of this process, and that adds to the efficiency. So it means that that is concise too. We're getting data, we're getting subject data here, maybe for science or SEND or whatever, or aspects. We're getting cohort, key stage, class, and whole school data all at the same time because of that rubric. The feedback we're going to take a look at in a moment is going to be instant. So that's the other thing. Now, added to that in this 10-minute visit, that's quite a lot to be doing in 10 minutes. We're also going to be taking a picture. So David, this is the bit where I always sort of shift over to you and take a moment really just to share with us how this can promote standards in school. It's not just about sort of evidence, is it?
It's not, no. We're going back to that matrix we were looking at the beginning for accuracy and efficiency. This really hits the efficiency spot, whether you are a subject leader, whether you are a phase leader or a senior leader or the leader. You've got opportunities when using Nautilus to take images. And if we're on an iPad or a tablet and we've got that technology in our hands, why not use it when we are in the classroom or when we are looking at the books? So we don't have to then create another task, another admin task, when you've finished going through some books or you've finished walking through some classrooms to think, now I need to go and get some evidence. We can do it at the same time. So there's a couple of ways in which we can do this in Nautilus. The first one is this: when you're in a learning walk or a book study, you will see the add image button. And you can toggle your live camera on, or you can head to your camera roll by ticking the My Pictures box. And what David's done, you can see, well, his image is being beamed to us on the webinar, so it's not live in the picture there, but you can see that he's tagging his image. So, and we know what tagging is. It's labeling, it's stamping that image with the words English, Year 5, Writing, Non-Fiction, and Expected Standard. And what this is doing is, this is going to take that image, it's labeling it with the words you as a school are choosing, and it's going into a central gallery, not the school server. Okay, not the hospice for evidence, which we call the school server. This is going into a central gallery, and we'll show you that shortly, where all the images go. They are searchable. You can find portfolios on certain tags, and we'll show you that. But it's a really quick way, David, whilst you are in the middle of one task, to quickly capture, there's that word coming back, capture some evidence because you deem it to be good enough to showcase the good things that are going on in your school. And I think that's a real good quick win, and we'll show the gallery in a moment, and we'll show other ways in which you can capture images as well.
Yeah, you'll see that I've tagged there. We always suggest tag by subject, year group, area of study, on this occasion writing, and also the expected standard to begin with. We could grade it if we wanted to, I guess, if we're in high school or whatever, but we want to basically share with staff, this is what it looks like. And I think if you make a beeline for the expected standard, what we get in the gallery is we then get that, we're able to validate the consistency across cohorts, between cohorts, and really sort of demonstrate and articulate the progression in learning, so it becomes very explicit, and it promotes standards, doesn't it? Because we're capturing those samples that we're going to share with staff, that are going to say, this is how good it can be. I love what you're doing, but the guy down the corridor, have you seen what he's done? It's sort of, I always felt that was very difficult to do, but we'll see how we can use that to promote and celebrate and demonstrate standards across school. So here you can see I've completed this. I've populated it with a voice type and everything else. Entry complete. That goes into the system, and I've got my 3 visits left on this occasion with this learning snapshot. So if it's 10 minutes, I can do it in an hour, and I can get around everybody. In this is Key Stage 2. So in this school, 3, 4, 5, and 6, one form entry. It could be upper Key Stage 2, or it could be a cohort or a department if you're looking at high schools as well. The one that's been completed here, that I've just done, I can click to edit. But the other thing that I can do, I can also email that directly to them. So using that voice type, I've entered in my thoughts and views, populated it, and then I can send this report straight onto my colleague pretty much while I'm still in the classroom. So with big schools, that's great, but also with small schools, when you've got 3 or 4 subject responsibilities, that's another game changer. So yes, you can have a chat, but we also accept the fact that if there's a lot of people kind of, this is 10-minute visits and people are all involved in this, forwarding that is a good option, to be able to kind of do it that way. And the reports, by the way, I always think it's good to take a quick look like that. So they are very supportive. There's no judgments on there. They're very concise. And it means that you can offer that feedback that you said, David, because I think quite often the channels for recognition in school are quite poor. We laugh about the fact that, there were times when we sat in the staff room and said, oh, it was really good, thanks very much. Basically, the exercise had been a bit of a kick up the butt rather than an opportunity to give sincere and direct feedback, because that's time consuming. So that idea of being able to kind of do it this way, or with a chat, a 5-minute chat, because it's very concise, I think is really key in ensuring that staff feel valued. And when that recognition's forthcoming, you'll get retention and wider dividends about how staff feel working in your workplace. And I think there's some bigger things from a leadership perspective taking place there. So you can see how that can work, but we're creating that framework for everybody. So good, regardless of career stage, that all of our leaders have that common kind of approach to kind of evaluating their subjects. So when the door opens, people know how it looks. So that's kind of setting up a learning walk and one report that it creates all that content. But we can also just click and go. So if we just want to pop into a classroom, then we can just select it and it will do a standalone visit. That's the quickest and easiest way to move around the school and do it that way. So, and we can tag as well with key stages and things like that, so we can filter too. So that's the learning snapshot. That's a quick look at that. But if I just move across here, let's have a little think about where that data is going, because I think at this point, and before we look at the gallery, let's just think about funneling all of these visits, individual standalone visits, visits from me, visits from you, visits from our leaders, using that simple and concise framework let's put it all into one place, because you talked about the server, David. The server is full, absolutely full of observations, monitoring, surveys, and things like that from yesteryear, all standalone, all that were basically, for some reason, we feel, I think it's evidence, we feel like we have to sit on for that length of time, but it's not joined up. It's not giving us a contextual picture as a leader as to what we do well. And so we do focus on test scores. So how about we start to think about getting that insight and feeling more assured about standards in the classroom? And here what you can see, everything is funneled into my dashboard. This is my current year. And if I key in here, I can bring up the art learning walks, I can bring up the maths learning walks, or book studies and so on, and everything is there. It's a very holistic view. Everything in one place, and arguably that's the thing that the people love the most about Nautilus, I think, when we talk to them. But let's have a little look and just do a bit of quick interpretation. We don't want to get too heavy on data because it's designed really to use the same day. So it's got to be quick. It's not about infinite discovering and filtering and drilling down and all those things. We've got to see it quickly so we can action it, and then it becomes more of a process than an event. My school average there, 1 is low, 4 is high. It's not assigned to an inspection framework. It's for school improvement purposes. It's for me and my team. Yours will be different. But we get some simple analysis as well as how that's broken down into those 4 key areas. So again, this is where the rubric's really helpful. A flight path there to see what the outcomes look like. And then down here, we can see each tool that we're using. So you can see my learning snapshot, again, quantified by outcomes. So we can start to evaluate those. Once you start to apply then all of the different kind of filters, we can see all of that by English, maths, SEND, ALM, whatever it may be. We can filter by those things. Down here, you can see the subject areas. We can also filter by observation tags that we've created. So there may be key stages or whatever they may be. You get classes and so on. That's really the subjects, interestingly enough, on the high school platform are interesting when you start with chemistry and you check that, and then you add chemistry and biology, and then you add chemistry, biology, and physics, and you end up with a whole department. So the insights are really fairly infinite at this point that you can gain from this. But the other thing that we've added is AI now. So if I click down here on Nemo, we added him recently. And this is because we felt like we were getting to a point where a lot of packages that I've used, David, and I don't know about you, but the data is always a series of drop downs. So you drop down for key stage, you drop down for, a cohort, you drop down for subject, you drop down for group, and it becomes kind of like this whole process I found was really time consuming. Then you have to generate this, and then you look at the PDF, and then is it right? I'm not sure. We need to change that. And then by the time you come a term later, you've forgotten where. So we could supersede this using AI. So what we're doing here, if you can see here with Nemo, we can summarize the learning walks that are in the system. And this takes the last 20 of everything that we've done, including parent and pupil surveys and things like that. And it gives us this quick summary so we can take that away. So we're putting everything through that matrix. We're looking and saying, how can we make this more efficient? So not just the process in the classroom, but the insights. So here we can copy and we can use this. We can forward it onto colleagues. We could use it in a SEF. If we want to create a supportive 1-paragraph summary, we can do that. And so that enables us to kind of change the instruction. We could do that for book studies and so on. And you get the idea, really commendable commitment to fostering an engaging and inclusive environment. I mean, it's like the terminology that you're getting from that. It depends on your audience, but obviously you can change that to suit. That would be great for feeding that back to the staff, and you can anonymize that as well. So it's an infinite amount of insight that you can get. And it's not that we're using AI here to do something for you, as in do the classroom visit or teach a lesson or prepare a lesson. We're using the AI to summarize your findings, not just you, but your whole team. So some massive gains there with that AI, David. I really think there's some significant benefits from feeling secure about standards in your school. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think whenever we talk about AI in education, the word ethics comes up a lot. And I do a lot of work with schools in AI. And I think that's a real ethical approach in terms of finding the information within your data. This is your data. You've input it, you've decided what's in there. All AI is doing there is pulling out the important bits that you want to pull out in a headline style that you can use in an intro to a report to governors or a subject leaders report to your senior leadership team. Because remember, your English leader has that as well. Your SEND leader has that as well. And it's not cheating the system. It's your admin assistant, really, in terms of pulling out the data you want. I think it's a great addition. Schools have loved that, David, that are using Nautilus. They really have.
Yeah, and I think we're learning really that it will become better. This just shows me one walk. So we're looking at that dashboard overview with everything in one place. If I click in and then take a look at a learning walk, it will show me the highs, the lows. 3 people involved, so we've got an external leader, so we've got our SIP involved, so we can use our challenge partners and those other people. That's really fantastic to fully utilize that team of leaders that we've got. So we always suggest add 3 Senkos, 5 English leads, 4 head teachers and or whatever. Add all of your internal and external leaders so you can do these things with them. Because when we talk about that use of time, if you have a school improvement partner coming in to work with you, how do you use it? Can we provide feedback the same day? There's some really great ways to be able to do it because I think we've been really keen to integrate opportunities for that collaboration with those external partners and maximizing the impact of those visits. So have a little think about that, because I think when you're working across a mat or a group of schools or whatever it may be, how do you utilize that expertise? Because quite often it's fairly clunky from my experience. We can see each individual visits from myself, my colleagues, whatever. So as a head, I can see this as well. If I wanted to set this up for a senior leader or a science lead, they can just see science. So we can narrow it down. So not everybody needs to see everything. So we can change the settings, but you get the idea. It's giving me a ballpark figure so I know where to look, and really I can start to work more intuitively, see who needs support and so on. And again, this might be to do with the fact that, the staff have moved year groups, or, it's to do with the fact that they're teaching something new. Who knows? The outcomes over time, so we could just hover. We don't need to filter. We don't need to drill down. Those 4 lines of inquiry we were looking at, we could see what those outcomes look like. And again, the same data here, all time, and then on this occasion. So this is the standalone bit, and then here is the context. So no reference to teachers or lessons. It's very good to be able to kind of share this the same day and take that away in the report. And as I mentioned, that was the teacher feedback report, but here we've got the report for strategic purposes. So you can use this really quality of education report. It's a good share. It's low sensitivity in relation to kind of, as I mentioned, and good for governors. It's very simple the way that the interpretation, and I think for governors, inspectors, and that flow of information, take it, see it, use it. 5 minutes, and you've got those insights that you need. So that was the whole idea when we designed Nautilus, to make sure that information was very easy to digest. And we've got Nautilus down there, so you can summarize just this report if we want. So we can create a summary of it, put that into our SEF or into our school improvement plans, fare it, email it to the governors, email it to my team to say thanks very much. So many different kind of opportunities there too. If I move across and add to that, really looking at the headlines. So this is where, as a head teacher, this is not for everyone, but for a priority user. So this is from, senior executive leads. This means that you're able to kind of see your teaching profile across the school. And I think this helps to secure confidence as a head teacher, because quite often I was asked, tell me about teaching and learning. And it's kind of the first thing you do is start talking about test scores. And it's like, really, come on. So here we're saying this is what our skill set looks like in school. This is how we assess and evaluate this together. And then once we start to apply those subjects to it, so if we start to add things like send, or you've got Alan on there as well for the Welsh schools, but we can then see what it looks like really from an inclusion perspective. So we can evaluate these things. Where you've got these areas, it means that you can ask the right questions. How are we supporting Ernest? It might have a previously excluded pupil, so that there's opportunities there to kind of intervene, talk to your Senko, and adapt and change, rather than wait for the outcomes and then try and feed this kind of back into that cycle. So I think you can triangulate this nicely with your data. And if send is a priority on your school improvement plan, how do you get the Senko into the classroom and enable them to work with your colleagues? Because that's about building capacity, and that's what we cover in our send webinar. But once you start to kind of use this data, you can then start to see, the different frameworks over time, the trends, the staff that have been involved. It's fairly infinite, and the tools that we're using to do this. So here you can see a send book study, evaluation and feedback as well. And you can see here curriculum work study. So we can apply more filters if we want to see send by year 5, year 6. We could add free school meals if our pupil premium. We could add any of those tags in addition to that. And again, I think on the high school ones, where you start to kind of use this data and then really start to build up this picture for the department. So if you're doing languages, you could look at French and then French and Spanish. So you could look at a subject, but also a department. So lots of ways really to inform the school improvement work that you're doing based on that data that's coming into the system, of which everybody is giving you. So all of your leaders are involved in that process. So it's not a top-down process, albeit as a head teacher, you're giving them the frameworks to be able to kind of do their job. So I think that there's some really good, things systematically going on here in school. So here, David, I'll click across to the gallery, and in a moment, we're going to take a look at some book studies and things other than the Learning Snapshot. We'll take a look at the Estyn framework quickly, and we'll take a look at the Dubai one and those kind of things. But how about we take a moment just to sort of sit back and enjoy the gallery, because this is we looked at that data, that analysis, that reporting, all of those processes that we're getting from that 10-minute visit. But how can we use this? What would be, give us some suggestions.
Yeah, so if you imagine in the gallery here, we've got all our staff who have leadership users, that they have got leadership areas of responsibility, and throughout their book studies, their learning walks, or just spotting things that are beautiful and brilliant, they can be adding them and tagging them into the gallery. So here we've got a gallery full of what could be hundreds of images, all tagged with various different things, from writing to artwork to expected standard in maths or science investigations, and you can see it all here. And it allows you as a school leader, or you as a subject leader or department head, to go into where all this brilliant information is and search for certain different areas or tags. So here, David's searching for writing. And so it's going to pull all together, all the writing tags in one place there. So we can see various different things, from early years writing on whiteboards to a display to some exemplar writing in year 6 there on the right-hand side. And I think there's 41 images there that we could scroll through. Now that's great. Well, we can drill down even further. We could go and look at expected standard. So we can keep the writing tag. We can now search for expected standard, and we're going to see expected standards in writing. We could drill further. We could put year 1, we could put year 6, we could put boys, pupil premium, whatever it is. And you can then pull in and look at what is there in the showcase. That image you can see at the top, David, with the history one. This is a really good example of collaboration where this is in the English and the writing section, but actually it was taken by the history leader, and it was tagged history, year 5, writing, non-fiction, Egyptians. And so it's going into multiple portfolios, this one image. So the English leader is going to see this, or the English department it might be, but the history leader is going to see it as well. The curriculum leader might see it if it's got the word curriculum as one of the tags. But it just goes to show, David, that when you start working collaboratively as a staff, and not just the SEND leader who's collecting the SEND evidence, but actually you as a teacher spot something great, like that boy with the whiteboard there who's done some phonics work, who's on the SEND register. If you're taking that in your year 2 classroom, but tagging it year 2, English, phonics, SEND, then your English leader, your SEND leader are going to see it, and they can use it to showcase the amazing stuff that's going on in your class. That's one element of using it in the kind of portfolio aspect. Another way it can be used is in simple terms. If you've got science week next week, your science leader can send a quick email out to all your staff saying, please can you take some images of practical science in these investigations next week? Can you tag them with your year group? Can you tag them with science? Can you tag them with investigation? And it just means if they're doing that, the science leader does not have to go trawling through classrooms, collecting evidence, collecting pictures, collecting folders. The teachers can do that with the science leader. So again, that's one example there. You can see these images, David, are taken where if we hadn't have taken those images, those moments will have passed. Okay, you don't see those images, those first 2, and think of test scores. There's not a test score that can show you that level of collaboration, that level of engagement, and so that's another way. We've got schools using this in all sorts of ways. But David's put the art thing up here. Now, I know you're a pretty good artist, David, and your background is very arty. Mine is not. My art lessons, I can tell you now, will not have been as good as your art lessons. But if I was teaching art, from a personal point of view from me, what are the expectations in year 4 for repeating patterns? Well, I can go in the gallery and have a look. If I'm thinking, well, actually, my children need to know this, I can show them the expectations. What's the presentation like in year 5? I'm going to show them, here's some examples. This is what last year's class did. This is my standard, my expectations on you. So you can see that the way you can use the gallery, it's endless. I'm wax lyrical about, I could go on for hours about ways in which this could be used, because these aren't books from 2 years ago. These aren't test scores from last May's SAT scores. This is work done last week or last month. And these are children in the school right now. And I think that's really important, that we're not relying on the test scores of children that have left and are now in year 7.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, there's so many different ways to be able to use it. I think to be able to celebrate your curriculum, but it's about curriculum impact, isn't it? The best teaching, not top of the class, because again, I think the progress here that it's very inclusive, because we're showing outcomes across the whole curriculum. Normally we focus on books, but how about those DT models, the progress for SEND pupils who may not score in tests? How do we capture it? How do we not evidence it, but how do we demonstrate how well the school serves those children? And I think that's the big question, isn't it? Let's get back to that. It's incredibly inclusive, and my school was high, the ratio really of pupils with additional needs. So to be able to kind of share this and capture those moments, I think are just real game changers. Too much of this stuff goes home, gets squashed on the bus in carrier bags. Never, it's gone. And I think that progress is really, really important. So I'm no surprise really we're taking a good look at the gallery, because I think we're adding video to that as well shortly. When schools have said to us, could you possibly add video? We always try our hardest, so your subscription improves arguably, because you sign up and it doesn't have video, but within 2 weeks it will. And that'll be 20-second captures, so nice quick captures, so you don't get the hour-and-a-half leaders assembly on the server for everybody to. This is going to be children reading, PE, performance, poetry, those kind of things. Some wonderful, pupil voice. Some really good. I'm interested to see how schools go. Start to use video, and that gallery will again go up another level. So here, and again, we're looking, when we integrate those things, it's how is it going to impact this is not like a boardroom decision that would be a nice feature. It's how can we integrate it in a way which serves the school and enables them to know more, really. So I think that's at the heart of our decision making. So here you can see the frameworks, some of the frameworks that are in the system. They're all similar designs. We can also do surveys, pupil surveys, parent surveys. So again, nice and quick, and the data comes to the dashboard, so it's all central. We can create our own surveys too. The book study is one that we kind of show. I'll just show you this one sort of fairly quickly, I guess, but I've set one up here. So we're looking just at the expected standard. So that's going to make it nice and quick. And then we can take pictures and evaluate the expected standard across cohorts, between cohorts. So we then start to understand the progression. We're not going to do top, middle, and bottom because it's going to be quicker and it's going to be more insightful, and we want it to be really focused. And that expected standard's a great place to start. Book study, English, expected standard Key Stage 2 gives some extra filters. It's already been created, so I won't play around with that. But I'm now going to assign it to myself. So there I am, Jules Verne. I'm going to ask my year 3, 4, 5, and 6 teachers to each give me 2 or 3 books expected standard. Head over to the walks. Those go into my to-do column, and then basically we walk through that framework. So again, the design is very similar when we want to do this. We're obviously working on our desktop here. It's not a device. We'll use the Voicetype, but we're looking at 6 areas: presentation, content, age-appropriate program of study, so the pitch. And that's an interesting one, really, when we're taking photos, because it might be a mixed year group. We might have year 3s and 4s together in the class. But what we're doing here is we're asking the teacher for the 3s and then the 4s, and then we're differentiating and identifying really the progression in learning between those, so the distinction in the outcomes. So I think that's one thing that we always talk to leaders about when we're sharing this. Pupil contributions, I always think that's an important one, because we need to see that they have sufficient time to secure and acquire and apply. For me, it's the thing that I would always look at in the books is how much time do they have to do that? Because from my experience, if it's limited, then you come back and you have to reteach it. And you can't. It's very difficult to build on that prior knowledge, because that's the way the curriculum works, doesn't it? That cycle through across the terms and across the year groups as to how we develop skills. Challenge and extension, marking and feedback. So on the progress one there that I just skipped over, sorry, is about progress on the day. It's all relative. There's the objective. Did we make the progress? If we look on Monday to Friday, first page to last. So some really significant progress, particularly for SEND pupils, emergent writing, those kind of things currently, and we can capture that with the pictures. We can put that into the gallery, because those, again, that progress might be the most significant progress in the class, but it's a pupil who doesn't score in tests or isn't getting those national averages. So that's where I don't think we have an inclusive system, education system, but we can work inclusively in this. We can consider that here. So I think it's really important that we can supersede some of those challenges that we have with the curriculum in that sense. That's my SEND that's my experience of working in SEND schools. But also in the same way that if we wanted to look at work studies, so that was a SEND one, a book study, but what about paintings? We looked at those wonderful DT models that we just saw there, the fire engines. Here we can use this to look at those things, because pizzas, smoothies, they're not in books. It's not that convenient. So we don't quite often, so we can apply an equivalent one. So again, we're creating a common language for those leaders to be able to use, but for staff to get the expectation. And I think that's a really great way to work. We've also got frameworks for SEND or ALN in there as well. We've got the equivalent frameworks too, early years. This is the primary one. The high school one's got quite a few more surveys too as well in addition. If I just wanted to sort of show you quickly as well how we're working elsewhere. So we're starting to develop and work with schools in Dubai. And for those schools, we're starting to kind of, they are very focused around inspection. So that self-evaluation, this is the kind of content that we've been creating with them, which is fairly simple to do, but enables them to evaluate the whole school. And then also we're going to create some distilled, lighter touch ones that you can use on a day-to-day basis. But some good ways to be able to build that dashboard if you're elsewhere. And, you know, the 6 areas you'll see on this rubric, this is very rooted to the inspectorate, so it's quite different. It's quite interesting to do, but it provides that guidance for leaders, which I think is useful to be able to know the frameworks, the expectations, and to be able to constantly, update and to perform these activities in the interest of good self-evaluation. So that's an example. And when we do work with those schools, if you are elsewhere, get in touch. We can work with you. We can create content for you and help you, or we can give you the framework so you can do that too. In the same way, though, we've been doing that with just creating some tools for Estyn, really. So here you can see up at the top the area that we're looking at and breaking that down. But this is a very distilled version of the Estyn framework, and we've got those frameworks there for leaders to be able to use there too. So if you're a Welsh school, you can use that, but I think it's used again in a very sort of developmental way. So when you apply it with your challenge partners and things like that, you've got some really good sort of processes there in place, and you can tailor that. Once you've got a copy of that in your system, you can play around with that as well if you want to change the terminology and so on. So whilst we're at that point, David, I think what would be good would be just to mention a little bit about the builder. And this is the place where you can create your own content and why we think it's so important to incorporate that in the platform.
Yeah, well, we know that every school's different, and this comes from talking to the amount of schools we talk to and the amount of leaders we talk to. Every school's different, you know, and every school interpret things differently, has different focus, although we're looking for the same goal in being the best we can be. And I think there's one example I'll share with you, David, that I think it kind of sums this up, and it is in the book study there.
Yeah.
And we know within the book study, the final part of the book study that people saw that you showed us was the marking and feedback area. So you can see the book study is locked so that people can't go in and ruin it. That's one thing leaders have said. We don't want people to break it, so it's locked. However, you can clone it and call it our new school book study. And if we open that up, it will then allow you to go into that new unlocked book study called Our New Book Study. You can go down to, for example, the marking and feedback area, and you can tweak that language that you want to tweak. So that's the first bit you can do, is go in and tweak. It might be a certain word we've used. You're thinking, actually, for us, we've changed it and we want to use this word or some terminology. You might have done some work on a certain area on this, and it might be about pupils responding to feedback, and you might want to add your own question to that. So you can then go and add a question if you want to and order it in the way you want to order it. That's absolutely fine. There are you might want to come up with your own brand new framework that you've got your own observations that you want to use, you know, and you can build it from scratch in there. We do have videos that support you with that in our YouTube channel. We'll show you where those are shortly, but you can go and explore those. The only thing the advice we give schools on this, David, is that this is done at kind of at corporate or stroke SLT level, that you make decisions about that. So you're not getting teachers going off and creating a whole host of suites for themselves in terms of observation forms or books, various different book studies. We have subject-specific book studies. We have subject-specific pupil surveys in there that you can use. So, you know, if that's something you're going to do, talk between yourselves at SLT level, make those decisions and make those tweaks at that level. But it's something that schools did ask for, David, and something we delivered, and, you know, they're making good use of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, one thing this week we created some content as well. So we're creating content for schools. So we created a governor learning snapshot. That was an interesting one, really, that came from the forum. Somebody asking, really, did we have one? And so we created this one. And really, this one's nice because the thing that I do like about it is that it has this guidance. So as a governor, you know, who's not a qualified teacher, it's about the impact, the culture, the environment, all those things that they can assess, but it also considers what they can't, I guess. And so unless they are qualified, and I think that that's good because it clarifies for the teacher and clarifies also for the governors. So you've got that consistency and that guidance. So again, just 5 things to look at. And again, you get the idea here. Is it productive or purposeful? We're not talking about progress. We're not assessing books or children or classes. What we're doing is, you know, it's a different approach, and I like that. If you like that, you can share it. So we can send it over and you can download it and then import it and export it. So good ways to be able to create content if you're in a MAT or a group of schools and you want to create one and put it into 4 schools, or if you want to share it with a you know, somebody on the other side of the world. It enables you to be able to collaborate in that way. And for these ones, the Estyn ones, which we're going to publish probably next week, we can then put them into our community, and then you can import them. So you can just take them away. And if you do want to edit them, you can edit them yourselves, and it will just update them live. So you don't have to have version 1, version 2, version 3. It can evolve, because as you mentioned, David, that's the nature of education, really. So coming back to, I suppose, just rounding things up a little bit as we start to conclude here. So you can see we started in this place really when we were on the tablet, but here you can see tech support, and we offer that the same day. Most of it's forgotten passwords, so I always like to get that out when I've got the opportunity. But also advice, if people want to sort of say, David, quite often we have people saying to us, how can I do this? What can I do? You know, and so we provide solutions and collaborate and help you to do the best that you can do. You know, it's our position is to support you with the work, so we can help with that if it's just solutions, or from a leadership perspective, we could give suggestions, advice as well. Use a guide so we can pick up the system and then just have a little go with it, and then it just covers us in there. And a bit of a slow loader today, but ultimately what you'll get in here is it will just give you some short videos, and it just helps your staff to pick up your device and use your tech tutorials and videos on YouTube. We've got a fairly big raft of things on here. I think it's really important to, you know, we put lots of content on like today's session, but we've also got some short how-to sessions. And when we introduce new things like Nemo, we put on there just a little bit of content so you can learn more about it. But there's lots of things on there to help you to get the most out of the platform. Quick mention as well, we've got the 360, which aligns with Nautilus, so that you can do your appraisals and you can use all the content, and then your staff can basically upload that to the files or drag it across and then create an AI report at the end of it. But if you go on the trial, you can take a look at that as well. It's all included in the whole thing, and we can upgrade schools if they want to do and add that to their package if they want to do as we move through the year. So we've covered really a lot on the content, but I'm going to come back, David, to the website, just so that we can sort of take a walk through. So before we conclude things and wrap things up nicely, if you don't mind just sort of unpicking this a little bit so people can see how they can work with us, or how they can come along and book into more webinars or access free content or join our community. There's lots of things that you could do here, aren't there? There's some good stuff.
Yeah, let's have a little whistle-stop tour of the important places in the website here, just so you can see. As soon as you land on nautilus.education, you will see you've got 2 buttons there. One is to book a demo. I have put that in the chat for those who have been with us live. But for those of you watching the video, David and I, every week, we spend time in free sessions for schools, for those who've looked at Nautilus and thought, we want to know a little bit more in our context. This is great for international schools, great for high schools, primaries, Welsh schools as well, where we can spend a bit of time learning a little bit more about your setting, and then show you some of the key features that will benefit you. These are free sessions. You can book there. You can book a date and a time which suits you. We will do the rest in terms of getting the invites over to you and etc. Via email. But that's a great place where you can have up to an hour where we listen to you and we'll go through some of the key things, and then you can go off and possibly have the trial. There's a trial button there as well. David has tipped the Facebook group, and I'll do the same here. In the community section, you will see you've got 3 areas there, one of which is the community on Facebook. Here on Facebook, we've got a group here of roughly about 1,000 school leaders, some of whom are using Nautilus, some of whom are not. But one thing we've got in common here, this is all about discussions and advice around school leadership. And you'll see loads of articles and, you know, there may be some rants every now and then about inspection systems or something like that. But it's all really good education content. It's also a place we update the community. So it's a place, if we've written a new form or survey, we'll publicize it here. If there's an article we've written or we've come across, we'll publicize it here. And you can go into the files area, and that's a really important place. You can go and grab some new content. So if you want a writing learning walk or a send a book study or an interactive screen display survey, yeah, you can go in and you can look at it.
Okay, I will continue where David was. So yeah, you can download from the file section. Lots of content on there, lots of things that you can take away as well. So here you can see we've also got the newsletter. So the newsletter is very thorough. It comes out termly. We have content in there, quick tips, and again, it's about helping you to use the system. But we've also got articles and features in there too as well. So you can click through, learn more about the platform. There's some of our upcoming webinars, and then read a little bit about the content, and lots of contributors in there. So you can see Tamina there, high school head, former high school head, talking really an article there about using pupil pastoral surveys. You get the idea. But whenever we develop, we add lots more content on there to be able to kind of enable you to learn more and again get more out of the system. And I think it's about helping your leaders to think like leaders too, because once you start to develop your leadership skills, and I think, you know, arguably in the 2nd or 3rd year of teaching, you then really start to kind of lead subjects. So these are all opportunities to kind of develop and grow and access things which will funnel all into the same place too. The webinars. So here you can see the webinars. Welcome back, David. By the way, so the webinars today, obviously we've covered this one, don't observe, capture. The clear head is senior leaders, executive heads. That's really about head teachers and creating systems for your staff and how you can design those. Whereas the subject leadership, the send leadership, it's about your role and your responsibility and how you can use the platform to help you too. But it's got lots of content on there. We give away freebies and things like that in those sessions. And really, it's just good CPD. We don't tell anybody how to run a school. It's just a bit like today's session. We'll cover lots of ideas and thoughts so people can have a good think about how they're doing things.